Alright, what's going on, guys? It's your boy, The Journey. Sorry for the lack of uploads for like 3 or 4 days or so. I've been really fucking tired. I've been sleeping all day and doing a whole bunch of shit. So yeah, but I got a new microphone, so let me know how it sounds. And sounds better than a fucking regular ass headset, so that's better. But yeah, let me know how the microphone sounds, and let's get to the story time. Alright, so this story time is basically about how me and my friend got basically away with smoking weed in school. So this story time starts off in middle school. Me and my homeboy for some reason decided to just not go to class. It was at first we weren't just like hanging out and not going to class together, but I was walking around the hallways, he was walking around the hallways, and we kind of just met up. So in the morning times, I usually walk to school, and most of the times I either smoke or I do something before school. Not like actual hard drugs, but mostly just weed. So I either smoke a blunt before school or I eat an edible. I like to be high at school. So basically, my mom, I guess, had left like a mini blunt on the table. I don't think it was for me. I think she just left it. But what happened was I took that and I went to school. So I smoked a little bit of it on my way to school, and I was high as shit. Like, I was walking to school like days from how high I was from that little bit of blunt. So when I got to school, I put everything up. I had like a lighter and a Rillo packet with the blunt in it, and I got to school. So this is about like third or fourth period. If you're in like middle high school and you have like 8 periods, this is like third or fourth period. So I'm in like fourth period. I do my work and I leave like I usually do. Most of the teachers didn't really care what I did because they knew what I did. So I did my work and I asked the teacher to leave. That was about it. She was like, "Yeah, you already finished your work?" I was like, "Yeah." So she let me leave. So I didn't get a bathroom pass or anything. I really just left because we didn't really have a quote unquote hall monitors back then. I say back then like this shit wasn't like a year or two ago, but back then they didn't have hall monitors, so I just kind of left. And then I seen my homeboy. I'm not gonna say his name, but he was just like, "Hey, what you doing? You trying to go somewhere and smoke?" And I'm like, "Oh, you got some?" He's like, "Yeah, I got some." I was like, "Oh, I bet." So I told him I had a little bit too, but I'm like, "All right, where we gonna smoke it at?" Because I'm not smoking in school. Like I'm not that dumb. I'm not smoking in school, so they can smell it all over the area that we're in, and then check the cameras and see that probably we're the only 2 people there. And I'm not trying to go for that. So we decided to do it outside the school. So if you know, I'm not going to say the school name because I'm not trying to get in trouble, but if you know how schools are, for some reason, there's just this big ass crate in the back of my school, like in the middle of the football field in the gym. So me and him are like, "All right, if you don't want to do it in school, let's just go outside real quick, smoke it, and then let's go back inside." So I'm like, "Okay, I'd rather do it outside than inside the school like a dumbass." So we start heading towards the little spot we're going to, and we see a few security guards, but they don't really say anything. They see a lot of people going around. It's high school, middle school, so there's a lot of people just walking around. So we get to the spot, and I'm like looking around trying to make sure nobody's coming this way, because some people do walk this way because, again, it's in the middle of the gym and the football field. So people from like, I guess, gym are walking down, and also it's by the field house. So people are going to the field house, changing their clothes, going to the next periods, and doing all that. So I was just trying to make sure ain't nobody going to be like coming and seeing us smoke and go snitch or anything like that. So what happened was, me and my homeboy made sure nobody. It was the coast was clear, and we're like, "All right, bet, let's smoke." So I pull out the lighter, I pull out the Swisher packet that I had it in, and I spark up my little blunt. And he had a full blunt, but we weren't going to smoke that yet. We were just going to smoke this half a blunt, just in case anybody came. So basically, I pull the Swisher packet out, I take the blunt out, and I spark it. And as I'm sparking it, I hit it a few times, pass it to him. He hits it a few times, pass it to me. So I'm hitting it, and I'm like, okay, so this is chill. Ain't nobody finna pull up. We can finish this, probably go back inside, probably smoke the rest of it later. So as I say that, I start hearing someone walking down the hill coming towards the field house football field. So I'm like, hey. And it was a janitor, like one of the janitors that cleaned my school and all that. So I'm like, why is he there? So I hurry. By the time my homeboy had the blunt, because I passed it to him, he like puts it out and throws it. And I guess the security guard heard him go, oh shit, and put it out. And he like stopped and he like starts looking around. And so at this point, I'm in middle school. I'm panicking like a motherfucker. So I'm like, oh shit, what am I gonna do? So basically what I did was we threw out the blunt, and I still had the swisher and the lighter in my pocket. But I didn't want them to call me because, one, I know there's cameras like right where we were just walking from. I didn't really care for the cameras because if they didn't smell any weed or anything like that, then they wouldn't be able to say anything. But you know how schools is, they get you in trouble just because they know you did it, but they can't prove it anyways. So I'm like, all right, let's just put it out and run up to the cafeteria. And he's like, all right, bet. So as soon as we put out the blunt, I guess the janitor walked past us, and we hurry up and bolt the same way he came and run up into the building. And then I'm like, all right, where we going? So the cafeteria is right next to the gym and bathrooms and all that. So I'm like, hey, let's go in the cafeteria quick. So if they do start looking for us, they might just think that we were walking around and not in the cafeteria. So as we're getting into the cafeteria, I'm like breathing heavily. I'm like, oh shit. So I'm like, they're going to search us. There was cameras right there. They're definitely going to search us. So I'm like, I take out the Rillo packet and I take out the lighter. And you know the wrestling pads that are like, you fold out all the way across the auditorium stage, or really it's the cafeteria stage because that's where the wrestling are practicing. But those big ass pads that like the cheerleaders and the wrestling people use, I stuffed my swisher packet and my lighter inside of the little like the rolled up wrestling pad. So I stuffed that in there, and then I just walked to class. So as I walk to class, I get in class, I'm sitting there for a minute, and I'm still high as I don't know what off that little ass blunt. So I'm just chilling. I'm not really doing my work because I already finished it. So I'm kind of just watching YouTube on my phone. And as I'm watching YouTube on my phone, the principal and the security guard walks up into the fucking room. And I look at them, and they look at me, and they just point their finger at me and like tell me to come here. So there's no going on the intercoms and saying my name. There's no, hey, I need to grab Demetrio from like talking to the teacher. Nothing. Literally, the principal and the security guard walks up into my class, points at me, and tells me to come here. So I grab my things. I grab all my things because usually if the principal comes in, you're definitely going to ISS. So I grab all my things and I walk with them. So we get into the principal's office, and they're like, so where were you fourth period? And I was like, well, I went to class, I did my work, and I went to the bathroom, and then I went back. And he's like, so why were you next to the gym area in the field house? And I was like, oh, well, I was just talking to some friends. I was walking around a little bit, but I was like, why? Trying to act like I didn't know what was going on. So the principal knows me since I don't even know how long. So he knows that sometimes I just be walking around school. Sometimes I just don't be doing shit. So he's just like, oh, so you were just walking around? So I was like, yeah, I was just walking around, and then I went back to class. Like, you can ask my teacher. And he's like, okay, so why were you with the kid? And he says the kid's name, and I'm like, yeah, I was just walking around and I seen him, so we just started hanging out. And then he said that he needed to go to the field house, so we went to the field house. And they're like, oh, so basically the reason why I brought you into the office is there's this very fragrant odor of skunk. And that's what he said. He's like, it's a very fragrant odor of skunk, and it smells like weed. And I'm like, well, I wasn't smoking any weed, so why am I here? And he's just like, well, we seen you and you were the only one on the cameras. And he was like, so why did you sprint to the door? And I'm like, I wasn't really sprinting. I was kind of just running up the hill because I didn't feel like walking up the hill. I wasn't really sprinting, but I did like race him to the door, if that's what you're talking about. And he's like, oh, so you were racing him to the door. Okay. So, yeah, we're going to search you, search your backpack, search your body. And then if you don't have anything, we're just going to get you out of here. So I'm like, all right. So keep in mind, I dropped off everything that I had in the cafeteria. So I'm just really hoping they didn't go and see that I ran into the cafeteria on the cameras and like say something about it, or go and look in the cafeteria, see if they like see what I hid or like put away, which was nothing only but a Swisher packet that was empty with the lighter. So then they start searching me. They take out my pockets, they take out my back pockets, they check my socks, they take out my backpack and basically just dump everything out of it. And there was nothing there, and maybe like an empty jewel pod or something like that, but they didn't give a fuck. They didn't even see it. They just threw it away because it was empty. Because they know I smoke. I've been at this school for years on end. They know I smoke. They know what I do. They know I mess around. So they didn't really give me detention on a jewel pod, an empty jewel pod. But basically, they let me go. So then after I leave the office, I go back to the cafeteria and I go back to the exact spot where I dropped off the packet and the lighter, and it's still there. So I didn't really pick up the packet just in case they came and got me again. But I kept the lighter, and that was really how it happened. Moral of the story is, don't smoke in the school. Don't be an idiot. Don't do what I did, because you're always going to get caught. If you're going to smoke or if you're going to do any of that, just do it before you go to school, and make sure you have at least something to show, or at least something to stop you from showing everybody else that you're high, because that is not a good thing. At least eye drops, cologne, something, because it didn't help that my backpack smelled like straight weed. Actually, I forgot to say that. So basically, my backpack smelled like nothing but weed, and they really could have got me detention just off the smell of my backpack, but they didn't really do anything. So yeah, that's the end of the story. Don't do what I did. Don't smoke in school. Don't be a dumbass. And all right, see ya.